in Pennsylvania. We welcome in Kevin Armstrong, one of the producers of this fantastic documentary, Killer Inside the Mind of Aaron Hernandez. Kevin, thanks so much for joining us here on Home and Home. Bravo. It is outstanding work. I can't get enough of it. And what makes it so good, Kevin, my wife doesn't really remember Aaron Hernandez, the player, doesn't watch a lot of football, cannot stop watching this documentary. So it's not just for sports fans. It's an incredible piece of storytelling. What's been the reaction?
It's been quite a whirl the last 5 days. It's not a week until Wednesday. And for us to, a project that we worked on for 3 years, a story that I reported for 7 years, essentially, it's been, pretty impressive to see the reach and the feedback that we're getting from people, just understanding how much of the story I think the national audience did not know. Obviously, Boston was pretty saturated with the story, but there's a lot of people just learning about a number of things that went on here.
The prison phone calls to his girlfriend, with his mom, to his friend who lied for him on the stand, to Pouncey, another NBA, NFL player they talked about their college days. How did you get access to those prison phone calls?
Yeah, it's the Freedom of Information Act. It's a waiting game. You file it to the authorities and the state and the corrections folks and whatnot. And, generally those calls aren't made public until after someone is deceased or has left prison. Obviously, Aaron, killed himself in jail while he was serving a life sentence, even though just a week earlier he had been acquitted in a double homicide case. So, the unfiltered voice, and really for him to, being honest with his mother, with his not sister, but his fiance, that's a whole dynamic that, we wanted to explore. And, he's even speaking with his agent at one point about possibly getting a Smith & Wesson endorsement deal. And, these are the conversations that somebody who's very comfortable in prison, there's a warning on each of the phone calls, let alone next to the phone, that, the government is recording these conversations. But clearly Aaron felt, comfortable enough in prison to continue to elaborate on a lot of different subjects.
So my question is, getting back to the 3 1-hour portions of it, how much footage do you guys have? You said 3 years. Like, how much time and footage goes into having 3 1-hour programs?
A significant amount. I traveled for this case alone. I traveled to Florida, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Boston and Massachusetts as a whole, all over the place. I covered him, as a Patriot when he was in the NFL. Remember the Super Bowl catch that, I was there when he caught it from Brady and whatnot. So, I knew Aaron Hernandez, the singular talent in terms of, as a reporter. And then when we saw the case and covering both of the trials, there's just so much more to explore. Family dynamics, what led to someone who had a $40 million contract to throw it all away. Literally, all he had to do in life was not kill somebody. And he wound up being accused of 3 murders.
Talking to Kevin Armstrong, one of the producers of Killer Inside, the Mind of Aaron Hernandez. It explores all aspects of this, including how this was arguably the dumbest crime we have ever seen in terms of the evidence, in terms of the path leading directly to Aaron Hernandez's door, literally and figuratively. When, in your sense, did Aaron Hernandez turn bad, and how much did the Patriots turn a blind eye to?
Yeah, I think there's a major pivot in his life when his father dies. He's still in high school. He's headed to UConn, is the understanding. Everything changes in kind of his junior, senior year of high school there after his father dies. And he winds up going to Florida, very competitive atmosphere. He's the Connecticut kid who comes down there. He's got to prove himself in the SEC. And, it's kind of a cauldron down there at that time, too. Urban's very aggressive, very, wants titles and everything. And, here's a guy who's trying to find himself. His father's gone, he wants to establish this reputation, of being tough amongst these guys. And if you remember, the Gainesville years with Urban Meyer, there was a lot of, issues, a lot of arrests and whatnot. So, he's around a different element there. And Whereas Urban says that he was, scared when, or, took note of when Aaron went back to Bristol, Connecticut. So there's, some discrepancy there in terms of finger pointing, whether, the hometown or the college town, whatever kind of, led him to this path. But clearly, Aaron had multiple decisions to make in his life, and he chose the wrong one a lot.
Kevin, it sounds to me like one of the biggest revelations from the documentary, or at least things that people are talking about, is the stuff with Aaron Hernandez's sexuality. What did you find in that regard, and what's been the feedback and response to that?
Yeah, earlier stories had explored it to some degree. The Boston Globe had, initially spoken with a high school teammate who said he had a sexual relationship with Aaron Hernandez, and we spoke with him as well, Dennis Sansucci. We spoke with his father, and we spoke with Ryan O'Callahan, a former Patriot himself who did not play with Aaron, but certainly knows the culture of the New England Patriots locker room and the organization. So we wanted to apply as much perspective and context as we could in terms of explaining, it's 2020. There's a lot of issues being discussed about sexuality, and especially in sports at this point. And we just tried to bring a lot of perspective to, what had been a discussion that really took place in newsrooms throughout his investigations and trials. It was just a matter of how to handle it. And we believe we, did so with care.
Talking to Kevin Armstrong, one of the producers of Killer Inside, The Mind of Aaron Hernandez, the fantastic documentary on Netflix. You knew that there would come some criticism, and Jose Baez is the attorney for the late Aaron Hernandez. He said on Instagram, quote, "These producers lied directly to my face, so I don't expect their money-making scheme to be much better." He suggested that CTE had everything to do with the death of Aaron Hernandez and the man he became in those latter years, that had nothing to do with his sexuality, adding, quote, "They are not even close to the truth." Kevin, what's your reaction to Jose Baez?
We appreciated sitting down with Jose. Obviously, Dan Wetzel and I, who executive produced it, we covered the trials for myself for the New York Daily News, Dan for Yahoo Sports. We know he's a very aggressive, very solid attorney. Casey Anthony, he's known in terms of a few cases now where he's gained acquittals from juries. And when he sat down with us, we appreciated the perspective. He offered us an inside look at really some of the decision making that Aaron Hernandez's defense team made. And obviously he has some differences in terms of what we chose to present in terms of the docuseries, but in all, I don't think anybody knows what exactly led Aaron Hernandez to make the decisions that he made. And our job was to present everything that was available to us. And we believe that we accomplished that with the presentation that we made.
Kevin, what's been the biggest reaction response that you guys have gotten in general so far? How much of it's been positive? How much has been negative?
Yeah, I think it's been overwhelmingly positive. I think that there are people who appreciate the story, from the victim's point of view. We took, great care to tell Odin Lloyd's story because we believe that, Aaron Hernandez's story might be the headline and the title of the piece, but clearly there were a number of lives that were affected by him. And the same goes for Daniel De Abreu and Safiro Furtado. Aaron was acquitted of their being involved with their homicides or being the charges that he faced, but still, those families came to the courtrooms each day and really, were waiting for, some kind of conclusion themselves. So I think that, really, it's only been 5-6 days since the started streaming on Netflix, and we couldn't be happier in terms of the reaction. There's conversation driven by this, and we hope that a lot of people learn not only from Aaron's story, but from those who were involved in his cases as well.
Tremendous detail about Odin Lloyd's life. You hear from his former teammate. He played semi-professional football, but essentially they paid to play football, which really tells another side of Odin Lloyd. Talking to Kevin Armstrong about Killer Inside, The Mind of Aaron Hernandez. What do you want viewers to take away from the story of Aaron? And do you feel, Kevin, that there's another chapter to this story as related to the CTE?
Yeah, I think we took pride in providing panoramic reporting. We were willing to speak to anyone, anywhere, anytime, and we really, put the resources into that. We did exhaustive, research to understand Aaron's life in whole. He was only 27 when he died. He was 23 when he was arrested. So, there was so much more life for him to live, and understanding his family, and obviously CT is part of that. Boston University, Ann McKee, the great neuropathologist, has clearly, said he was stage 3 CTE, and the worst case for somebody that age at that point. So, there's a lot of discussion to be had. Aaron played in the NFL for 3 years, 3 years at the University of Florida, high-level football. A lot of people played at that level and don't make the decisions that Aaron made in terms of the criminal activity. So there was a criminal mind to really break down and understand as well, not just the singular talent that Patriot fans celebrated for the time that he was there.
His girlfriend has said she wants privacy on Instagram. Kevin, have you heard from friends, family members, their reaction to seeing the documentary?
I've heard from people in Bristol. I can't say that we've heard from the Hernandez family in particular, but definitely friends and family, both those who cooperated with the film and those who informed us off camera as well. So there was plenty of institutional knowledge heading into the film process. Dan and I both covered it pretty thoroughly as journalists, and we kind of wanted to bring everybody into the project that was willing to speak with us, including Jose Baez, who we appreciated him sitting down with us.
Outstanding. And final question is, there's a lot of people that wonder, of that $40 million contract that Aaron signed, are we aware of how much Hernandez actually earned and what was left of the estate at the time of his death?
Yeah, I think those numbers they're going to be hard to tell, unless his agent, speaks to it. Obviously the number that's always assigned to Aaron is that it was a 5-year extension for $40 million. And, that came, shortly before everything transpired in terms of the criminal, accusations and whatnot. There was about a year of that he actually played. So, the Patriots are, an organization that, is not going to just hand over money. And, there have been court, hearings and discussions over the years and whatnot. But at the end of the day, Aaron, died when he died. His conviction was originally vacated, but then it was reinstated. So he is, officially convicted of killing Odin Lloyd and, served a life sentence at the time of his suicide. So that money is going to be very difficult, if even possible, to get at this point from the Patriots.
Highly recommend you check out Killer Inside, The Mind of Aaron Hernandez, streaming on Netflix right now. Outstanding piece of documentary work. Appreciate your time, Kevin Armstrong. Thanks so much, and congratulations on the work.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, guys.